The Say Something podcast is brought to you by amomentwithmorris.com and blackblueprints.com. That's blackblueprints with a Z.com. I am Jermaine Morris here with the one and only Mr. Berry Accius.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Bringing you the newest installment to the Say Something podcast.
Say something, say something, say something.
Episode 14. Got 14 and 13 in the can, going for 14.
We should be at 30 or 50 by now. So,
but we get together and talk about everything going on out here in this life, out here in these streets, out here in the struggle.
Man, everybody's feeling a little bit black today. Everybody. But go ahead.
Feeling black or feeling black and blue?
Oh, man, they feeling blacker. They is now entering the black zone. But we'll get into it.
Since the last time we got together, last time it was Obama was peacing out.
Peacing out.
So now, since we here, is Donnie Trump time. Yep. Donnie T.
Donnie T's in a building, in a place to be.
Donnie T in the building. He's coming in with both barrels.
Guns are blazing.
He coming out changing all kind of policy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a simple fact of how this brother has acted, it's almost like having a 10-year-old running the house.
Exactly.
Right.
If you've been under a rock since Donald J. Trump, the 45th elected president of these here United States of America, his whole campaign and focus is to A, undo everything former President Barack Obama did, and B, just run amok, get everything done he want to do on his watch, and he's just going for his.
Yeah. He's definitely going for his. I mean, at the same time, like what was to be expected, but what you're watching and what you're seeing right before our eyes.
I'm a firm believer in that when people show you who they are, believe them. And everything that he's doing now is consistent with who he was on the campaign trail, which is consistent with who he was when he was just a celebrity, which is consistent with who he's been in the public eye for the last 40 years.
America allowed a pompous, arrogant, multi-millionaire in a position of power for what people say is the greatest position, the leader of the free world. They have given him access like no other. When the millionaire now has full reign on everything possible that the head commander-in-chief of the United States has, it's a recipe for disaster, dog.
Yeah, so in case you don't know, so going into the end of old former President Barack Obama's term.
Break down what this guy, the hit list that he got on so far.
So as Barack Obama was leaving, if you remember in the news, the big thing was like Standing Rock, where they want to do the oil pipeline, which is going to come through Native American soil, and Barack Obama put the kibosh on that.
He took some time. It wasn't swift. He took some time on that.
Yeah, but it was done. Since then, old Donnie T is gone back on that. It's business as usual, and they're gonna push through with the pipeline. Apparently, there's already been an oil spill since this has gone back in. His plan to remove the Affordable Care Act, his plan of his issues with Planned Parenthood, the lift on the gun ban, he is right now. Yeah. We can't forget about the Great Wall of Donnie.
You can't not forget
the Great Wall of Donnie, where
the taxpayers are going to flip the bill on that because Mexico is going to pay us back later.
Yeah. Comedian, actor, radio host D.L. Hughley said it best. He said, so Donald Trump wants to buy the wall on layaway. That the American people are supposed to put the money up front, and then you're supposed to get this money out of these people next time by some form of embargo, or more so what that means is put the squeeze on them on the back end to try to force them to pay up later for this wall.
Don't forget about China.
Oh, and so, there's already the issue. So now, since Donald Trump's his platform also is to remove America's presence as the global police officer. To remove America's presence as the one because he wants to bring back tortures, wants to bring back, all the stuff that Obama tried to put for the 8 years. He wants to we just got into a time machine and he wants to take it back 60 years.
Yeah.
And all these things has taken America out of a shaky moral high ground, which it previously held.
Yeah.
And so now he's more or less just kind of like, I don't care if America is seating at the table for this particular position. And China is right there to step in and say, we will be that front runner that America no longer wants to be.
Doesn't he want to try to get the U.S. out of the UN and as well?
He's trying to keep So William Jefferson Clinton, Bill Clinton, former president, he had a policy to where he wasn't involved in a lot of foreign issues during his tenure because he wanted to keep money, resources, and Americans in America. Now, he never wanted to remove America's responsibilities. He just wasn't doing extra-ish. Like, he wasn't, do that extra pro.
He was too busy getting ahead in the overall.
I said he was a lover, not a fighter.
Yeah, no doubt.
So Donnie T, his standpoint is a little more like...
More aggressive?
More hands-off globally. Like, we don't need to be dealing with all this stuff. And when we deal with people, it doesn't need to be in such large capacities. Like, America has this thing to where we go over and bomb a country and then we support them for 50 years. Trump was like, to the victor go the spoils. If we going to go over there and bomb them, take the oil and peace out. Like, like that, he's on.
That's the businessman's way. That's how capitalism works, right?
Yeah. He's like, why are we playing?
Why bomb him and then feed him? He's like, bomb him and fuck him.
Yeah.
Right?
He made the threats to legislation in Illinois, saying that if you don't address your crime issue in Chicago, you do it, or I'll send the feds in to do it for you.
Martial law coming to a Chicago neighborhood near you.
Oh, only if you live on the south side.
Oh, that's what. Yeah.
These are just all these things that are going in. So now now that we kind of got all the trays and the plates and the silverware everywhere, now let's properly set the table. What does this mean for Black Americans?
Dun, 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 dun. Well, since every so-called Black celebrity has, I shouldn't say every, but a few Black celebrities have come and spoken to Donald Trump on the behalf of the Black community. Mm-hmm. I didn't get the memo. The young singer, she got a whole bunch of riff and
Crochet Michelle
and a headbang because of that. And I felt that it was a sad attempt to always attack the young girl, like, because no one really gave Ray Lewis heat, Kanye West heat, and Jim Brown. They didn't give them the amount of heat that she got. So, I mean, whatever. She got a check, dog.
Those are a little different. A little different. And the reason why a little different is because her thing with him was singing at his inauguration.
Okay, she got a check.
But no. But I'm saying she got roasted for that because they were putting out there. Anybody who performs, who's going to be? We talked about this last show. Who's going to come? Brother Tariq Nasheed calls it. The Coon Train is coming.
But at the same time, they met. They met with the brother, so it's all the same kind of circus to me. It is what it is, right? Yeah. She got it. I mean, she's not really well known. I mean, she needed to get something done. I mean, it's just like what a lot of these celebrities do to get there. I mean, look what Soulja Boy has done, and we bought into it. I bought into it. A lot of people bought into it. Train wrecks. People do what they have to do to get the food on the table. I'm not knocking her. I just say if you're gonna go at her, and then go at the other brothers just as hard and just as strong. And they did it. Okay. Spike Lee banning her and all that type of stuff.
They roasted Kanye. They damn sure roasted Steve Harvey.
Now, but you know what? I didn't hear anybody quoting bans. All right. So let's go into what I'm looking at, the content of everything.
Okay.
When I said earlier, previous in the show, welcome to being Black. Like I said, welcome to the Blackness. The Negro, specifically soldiers that I know, comrades that I know, and myself. We have been talking about the oppressive nature of the Black community for the last several years. We're not going to even go back into decades of it. We're just going to talk about the last several years when we spoke upon the hideous or horrendous deaths of Trayvon Martins, the Mike Browns, the Tamir Rices, the Sandra Blands, the Freddie Grays. I mean, this is just to name a few.
Yeah.
And all of our pleas, all of our screams, all of our anger, all of our vengeance, all of our, marching, protesting, as they called us, looters and rioters, it fell on deaf ear, and almost Americans became silent. Now, that's not all Americans, but a majority, because I'm looking at what's going on now. I just left the press conference, and it was Muslim and Latinos, African Americans, Jews, everyone was all piled up. In this press conference, what I was so frustrated, and I had to actually get out of the circle of the "we all stand together" picture, because it kept on resonating to me that they kept on talking about what Latinos and Muslims are going through. And I said to my head, like, well, if you paid attention to what blacks have gone through, and we're just talking about in the last few years, we're not even going back into history, but we'll go into there later. But the last few years, when we were getting publicly lynched, no one chose to stand by our sides collectively. And when I say collectively, I mean to the point where the people who are making these rules and these laws and committing these heinous acts of injustice against us, they would have felt it. Yeah, people came, they stood, they yelled Black Lives Matter, and they went back on their regularly daily campaign. But it did not stand with us in solidarity to really make it be uneasy for any judge, any DA to even think about not prosecuting some of these henchmen. So now, what I've yelled at so many times in the last year, once they're done with us, who do you think they're going to go after next? And now the next is the Latinos, the Muslims. But when we talk about the Latinos and Muslims, we're talking about the immigrants and all that. What gets, I think, shelved is the simple fact that it's just not Mexican immigrants. It's the Caribbean immigrants. It's the African immigrants. I just got done talking to a friend that's just worried about her getting deported because, her visa is up. You know what I'm saying? So we as black people need to make sure that we don't fall for this. We must resist. We've been in resistance. We can't fall for the fact that the issues that we deal with now be compiled with other issues because no one cared and thought about our issues or even looked at it directly. Now that the shoe is on the other foot and Mr. Donald Trump has not dropped an executive decision that really kind of falters the black community yet, which I'm sure he's going to with that stop and frisk. If that shit goes down, then, blacks are going to go all over the place. But in the same content, I believe that now everyone is seeing what we have been saying for decades upon years. And it's like, welcome to our reality.
Okay. A couple things in there. So
I was ready for that, man.
Yeah, there's a couple things there. So when we talk about the other groups feeling the quote unquote black experience in America. So as well as when you talk about how, we're all in this together. The funny thing about this country historically is that a lot of other groups benefited from the brunt that black people suffered, though they didn't come in when black people were suffering. So like they just had the big the Women's March right after Trump was signed in, sworn in. And nationwide, millions upon millions of women of all walks of life, colors, creeds, nationalities, religious affiliations, all that band together as their solidarity as women. And something that a woman had pointed out, okay, how many of these women out here marched for black sons that had been killed? Like how many of these women wept alongside black mothers who were in pain? Like it is. So when it comes to these other groups getting introduced to their black experience, where does that fall? Is this now our time to gracefully bow out? Because when you go back, I know you say you want to go back too deep historically, if the Immigration Acts, women's liberation movement, if your family is Korean, Chinese, from Laos, Philippines, if they're from, Honduras, from Mexico, if they're from Pakistan, if they're from Iran, all benefited from the bloodshed of black Americans. But very few participated in the blood spilling when it happened. So is this now the time that we just say, y'all turn?
I totally believe that what it is is the time for us to recognize. Let's get some recognition to the pain. Let's get some recognition to the fact that we told you so. Let's get some recognition to the fact that there wasn't any sense of true solidarity.
Okay.
When the going got tough, others kept going. Black stayed in the same direction they was going for the same exact years. Like, I don't take white people yelling and marching and protesting with me. I don't take that to be anything but white guilt. That doesn't move me. What moves me is when I see white people acting in such a way that they're saying to themselves that I am a person still with credibility and a person that still has strength without my privilege. Like, I want you to move and interact without privilege, because the privilege gives you an access and it gives you a certain power base that I don't have living in America. I want to see Muslims and Latinos and Asians. I want them to start giving us the notes and giving us the clues on how are you guys able to come off the planes, come off the boats, and start flourishing and making things happen in our communities.
Yeah.
I just got back from DC. Middle Eastern and Asian ran. Negroes is in the hood, and the businesses are owned by Middle Easterns and Asians. So I don't see them passing the baton of wealth, information, or for us to rebuild our community. Where's the help? So when I look at this moment, serious conversation has to be on how much do you really want unity. 'Cause saying that shit is one thing. Doing it where it makes sense is another. Because once people want to alleviate and giving out power, see, that's always been, I think, white supremacy. White supremacy has always been, how much power are we going to allow like others to have so we can be on this equal playing field? And they have showed time and time again, they don't want to alleviate anything. That's why you have the issues what we have right now.
Okay, well, you want to make sure we don't skip over stuff because you make really good points. We want to make sure that they get it. One thing that we talk about why, and it's something that's common, you'll hear people who say that my grandfather came over, didn't speak the language, he was able to establish something for himself and this, that, and the third. There's some things that are in place in a specific policy that excludes black people specifically. Like, there's a lot of people don't get that. There's a policy that was put into place after the civil rights era in the 60s, and it was referred to, it is called benign neglect. So if you ever come across this phrase, what benign neglect means is that the issue that was arising throughout the civil rights era is that the government, powers that be, whatever, recognized that not giving black people anything from the jump wasn't what started the uproar. It was making promises to black people and then not living up to them. Because if you go into this thinking, ain't nothing for me, I ain't never going to get nothing, they ain't never going to do nothing, that's just the way it is. It doesn't, you may get frustrated, but the ceiling is very visible. When you tell somebody, oh, no, anything's possible. The American dream. There's Ice Cube lyric. He said, if I could sell you the American dream, I could sell you anything. And all these things that are promised to everyone, and I'm going to tell you it's for everyone, but I really mean everyone but you. That's where a lot of the issues came. So what benign neglect was, it was a policy about there will never be another thing issued for black people. This is where black people became people of color. This is when black people became minorities. When black people became all these other broad, ambiguous terms where we all got lumped in together. So you can still present a Latino issue to the table. You can represent an Asian issue to the table, but you can't bring a black issue to the table. So as time goes by, and these policies they may not address it with the same terminology, but the same practice. You get people who come over from other countries, from other cultures, who can be heard because there was never a policy put in place for them. There was one put in place for us.
Yes, sir.
So that right there is a huge difference why other groups have been able to move a little smoother. Now, I think it's very important to your point as well about if we're really in this together, help. Instead of the judgment of, well, I did it, how come you can't?
Help.
or this and that.
Because you need our help now.
Well, they're going to be looking for it.
No, I mean, because you said it earlier in the show. Every real movement, and let's now go into history.
Yeah.
Even the American Revolution, to the Civil War, to the Vietnam War, blacks, the World War I's and II, blacks was at the forefront of helping defeat or helping be a part of the situation that America needed, right?
Yeah.
Without us, trust and believe the Civil War would still be going down, right? I mean,
it wouldn't be what you look at the United States.
The framework of the United States wouldn't be, because of us pushing the civil rights. It created the woman rights. It created all these other things that others have benefited.
Strictly by
Everyone
default,
has benefited off of black culture, black oppression, black sacrifice, black resistance. If you cannot, and what pissed me off was when they were speaking at this press conference and they were laminating all these different things, but they jumped over the fact that slavery played such an integral part of why we as blacks still continue to struggle. And when you look at that and this domino effect, and I remember quoting myself in a video that I had an interview there. I was saying, I said, our oppression becomes your oppression, because you cannot think that we are going to continue to get bullied and picked on and just beat up like rag dolls, that after a while white supremacy is not going to look for another victim to pick on, to deal with. And it's so funny that everybody sat on the sidelines, just like you would sit on the sidelines watching somebody get picked on and never jump in. You're recording.
Yeah.
And you may let it go on to the local news and say, well, look what I found. Yeah. But you're not stopping the bullying. Now we have a situation where you got everybody jumping, and now everybody is looking for people to gain this momentum. Let's march together. Let's protest together. Now all of a sudden it's the thing to do, when before, when we were doing it, looters, rioters, thugs, why are you destroying your buildings? When I saw, just leaving DC a few days before inauguration, you had white males and females. And someone said, how do we know they're white? Damn it, of course I know they're white. I can see their freaking whiteness through the little ski mask they have, right? They were destroying DC, downtown DC. They were just doing and running amok. But does anyone really speak on that? They speak on it like the frustration of America is being seen right here, compared to when blacks are doing it. Oh man, those Negroes are destroying and burning their own community.
Okay, let's get a couple things you got. So talking about how if the way that this system is set up, this capitalist society in which that America is based upon, is that not only is it racist, but it's classist. Classism is huge.
Classism is huge.
So to a lot of these people who are getting frustrated, because it's not just going to be Latinos and Asians, poor white people are catching the brunt of this too. And the issue is that the capitalist machine, I think one of the things that I liken to, you remember Wesley Snipes, the Blade movies?
Yeah.
You ever watched the second one?
Uh-huh.
Okay, the second one, in case you didn't see it, good one to pick up, good special effects, all that. The second premise
was like a total Blade plug.
Yeah, I thought I liked the movie, so I'm good to plug. But the premise and why it's important, Blade, Daywalker, he used to kill and hunt vampires. The second one was an off strain who hunted vampires. Yeah. So they went to Blade to help him, to ask him to help them go after this other group. Yeah. And Blade's kind of like, why should I help you? You spent your whole life coming after this group of people. Now that you're no longer the top of the food chain, why should I help you? Because their mindset is because after they finish with us, who do you think they're going to next? And that's why he stepped in and helped his quote unquote sworn enemies to get rid of a threat. because it was for the self-preservation of everyone as a whole. Some of these other groups out there are going to have to get their blade on.
Yeah.
Even if you haven't gotten along with your neighbors, gotten along with the people on the other side of the tracks, on the other side of the street, whatever. Now this is the attention has been turned.
Yeah.
Now the fact of the matter is that for where black people are in America, for the most part, we're kind of autopilot. We have so much work that needs to be done internally that the machine can now turn its attention, because we shifted. Something very powerful happened in the last decade. Black people went from number 2 to roughly number 5. So it used to be the dominant culture of Caucasians of privilege, and that's not only just being white, but also having means and resources. Number 1, then went number 2 were black people, then you start going Latinos, Asians, whatever. In the last decade, that shift went from black people being 2 to Latinos being 2nd, Asians being 3rd, the LGBT community being 4. You can interchange 3 and 4 if you like. Black people shifted to 5. There's no reason to address us directly anymore. The things that are in place in the machine have already kind of put itself in place. We have a lot of internal work before they need to even deal with us again. So who is the machine turning its sight on to? The new number 2. And if you're 3 or 4 going for the number 2 spot, guess what? That means all 3 of you are in the crosshairs.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of other groups of people who are going to start to think that, okay, we've been watching black folks get their butts kicked and reap the benefits of what they go through. Now, like you said, welcome to welcome to being black.
I mean, it's. I look at it like this: white man's world, white on white crime at its fullest potential. Let the white folks take care of this business and let them handle it. I don't tell my black folk to resist, because we've been in resistance from day one. I say it's time for us to build. If you're not building and you're destroying, and that's not saying that I'm not going to collaborate with my other counterparts on certain levels, but I'm not going to open-heartedly just walk in and just allow myself to forget. Now, we're going to have some real conversations before I move and have my people move in a way to where solidarity is real, because there has to be a lot of healing. There has to be a lot of real conversations. And this is not even with white supremacy. This is with other individuals that stood by to watch white supremacy. I mean, they've reaped the benefits of white supremacy, not even having white privilege, but white supremacy keeping us oppressed, right? Yeah. Because in a sense of, when you look at our communities, white people may own certain buildings in our community, but businesses and jobs are owned by other people that are not white, that are our counterparts that are now dealing with the situation at hand. Something
that I didn't want to cut you off, but I think that's something that's very important tied to what you just said, is that a lot of these other groups in America have had the luxury of being white or a minority until recently.
Exactly.
So if you're of Latino descent, if your family's Mexican, Colombian, El Salvadorian, Central American, if your family is Chinese, Asian, if your family is Middle Eastern,
Still
Indian,
pale-faced, man.
But the important part is that through the U.S. Census and the actual breakdown in the country, you were white until the 80s. So when it came to all the benefits that fell under being white, all those other groups benefited. And then in the 80s, when they changed and put in policies of affirmative action and other benefits, they got the luxury of flipping it. And then becoming a person of color and reaping the benefits on the second side.
Because I'm watching the narrative, and I clearly heard and I clearly paid attention to the immigrants were basically specifically Middle Easterners or Latinos. Yeah. When we know we have plenty of Caribbean and African immigrants right here. Yeah. And no one pays attention to that. Guarantee you they will be the first ones to go before anybody else. Because in sense that Latinos are still needed to do some of the laboring, right? And Middle Easterns, you're going to kind of figure out a deal because of, certain things that, the U.S. always has going on. So with them. But at the same point in time, like, we can't forget about our own people. And that's what I believe that always ends up happening. Because, man, I'm going to keep it 200. I've been screaming racism. Let's talk about race. Talk about white supremacy. And I know I'm not the first guy to say it.
Yeah.
You know, clearly there's been plenty of other people throughout the years that have said it. I mean, for centuries that I look up to and I've studied. But clearly here in Sacramento, I know I was one of the most vocal and most outright leaders in the black community that wasn't in fear of speaking on this. And people looked at me like I was crazy. When I would post certain things on Facebook, speak out in the news, speak out in my public speeches, and it was always met with my own black people with some disregard. And even blacks was looking at, I remember a councilman's wife telling me one particular time when we had brought some youth there to speak upon in one of their dumb fake police garbage commissions, right? Saying that we need to move on past Mike Brown. Like didn't even hit a year yet. And I looked at her like, are you kidding me right now? And so I look at this and I look at the blame, not on Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Not even on white supremacy, but black elite or so-called comrades that now want solidarity that again looked and watched the behavior and said, well, if it ain't happening to us to that level,
yeah,
it's okay. But now, don't get me wrong, Latinos probably never ever liked white people, but as long as they didn't bother them, they're going to keep on going with their day. But they're not going to stand directly with us. And this is no disrespect to my brown people, but this is honest. You're not going to stand directly with us, even though we know they have just as many issues with police brutality as we. We have not had that kind of solidarity that we need to have because of whatever issues that has been created between Latinos and blacks. I don't know what it is, but now we're here at a point that all of that stuff has to be put aside because as a people, we are more powerful together. But I want to know, as a people, is this just temporary confinement because of the situation, or are we really trying to find better solutions and move and navigate together?
Okay, so I think something that goes along with what you're saying is that's a very important message, that the breakdown of ethnicities and races in America for the kind of the big picture plan are different. So the prison industrial complex, the convict lease program, we talked about that before. This big, huge, it's shifting in $1 trillion industry of using convict work as opposed to, normal labor. That framework and structure is more so designed for us, black people, than it is Latinos. So when it goes to like what our struggles are going to be, the things that are being put in place, the big picture plan for us is incarceration. The issue that they're dealing with Latinos is different. So, but what's going to happen is that I would like to see what would bring those other groups on board before it's fourth and long. Do you know what I'm saying? Like because what's going to happen is that the mass incarceration is going to continue. Like, okay, even something we talked about a little off air, the new law in Louisiana, where if you resisting arrest is considered a hate crime against a police officer, and it comes with a potential 10-year sentence. Here's where this gets real sticky and real sticky icky. The definition of resisting arrest is if you're walking down the street and the cop says, "Hey, draw, put your hands in the air," you just resisted arrest.
That's simple. Because
you didn't comply with a direct order from a police officer. So now you can sit there and say, no, you have to do this. No. Once you disobey a direct order, once you do not comply with the direct request, you are now in resisting of the practice of that police officer's job and his duty to facilitate whatever reason he's there for. So get on the ground. Wait a minute. What? Stop resisting. What did I do? Get on the ground. But who are you? Like you are now. So now even if you were arrested incorrectly, like they got the wrong guy, you can still get penalized for the resisting, even though they had no reason to arrest you in the first place. So there's going to be a lot of people who are like, we got the wrong guy. What's the description? I had a conversation with a police officer and a guy he was talking to was talking about, they always talk about, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. I said, I'm 6'2", bald-headed black dude with a goatee, and I probably got a half dozen black leather jackets in my closet. Do you know how many people I fit the description of? He was a tall, black, bald-headed dude with a goatee and a black leather jacket. I fit the description. You could go ahead and get 1,000,000 of me other black dudes in any given city and anywhere in America, and we all fit the same description. All it takes is for somebody to say that and then try to pin a gun charge on me or a drug charge, and it not be me, and me not comply with split-second response time, and I could still get a dime. I could still do 10 years, even though they had the wrong person because I wasn't right there quick with it. They're even trying to go mandatory death penalty for taking the life of a police officer. That's another one they want to put on the table. Is that if you take they want to put on the books that they'll be voting on in your near future.
If America wasn't racist and if the average white person didn't think or feel like Trump, how is Trump the president? That's what white America got to answer to. And this is exactly why too much power creates corruption and creates this hellfire that we're dealing with right now. If the lesson for us that we no longer need or we've had enough of any white woman, any white male, especially that has some type of wealth, and hasn't had to really struggle. I mean, you had to struggle to continue to stay rich. That's a great struggle to have. Right? Yeah. But
maintain.
Yeah, to maintain the riches is I'd rather have that.
Yeah.
You now have to understand, and we all have to really see that they are no longer able to maintain or contain their thirst for having power and corrupting this world as they've corrupted it for centuries and centuries. Like, they have shown us that this is something they're devils. I mean, literally, you got a situation where here is Donald Trump. We don't know if the Russians helped him. You know what I'm saying? He goes on these tantrums about
Twitter fingers.
Dude, he's basically said, this is crazy. Like, he's so arrogant and egotistical that this dude is more worried about what the media is pertaining to be what his inauguration looked like.
Yeah.
Comparisons to Obama, and saying the media manipulated pictures and no, my inauguration was the
better turnout,
most widely watched. He's worried about that. He's worried about what is voter fraud, when there is this major allegation that the Russians may have had something to do with it. Someone had something to do with something, because when you turn around and you watch all the melee, you're shaking your head like, we know he had some supporters, but he couldn't have had this many supporters. So right then and there, everything that a lot of our freedom fighters and the soldiers that have been bearing their lives and their souls to tell the truth, to let people know, this is our government, a big freaking joke. If you believe anything right now that any government official says, I don't even care the ones that continue to say that this place will be a sanctuary. They're saying that, dude, to keep face, because I don't think not any one official of a government, a governor or to a mayor is going to go out of bounds and speak against the people right now.
Yeah, because you have an issue that's building more and more in America based upon civil liberties, privileges, all that stuff are not the same as rights. And so there's a lot of stuff that you're just kind of allotted to do as a human being in this country that's not actually your right. And so he's really coming after all those privileges and civil liberties as well as rights. Like, if you're a government federal employee, he's trying to put the kibosh on your ability to speak to press. They're trying to get the law. They want to make it against the law to protest. It's because they want to associate a fiscal amount to the cost that these protests bring. So when they have
there's one I've heard that they want it to be okay to shoot protesters.
Oh, I haven't heard that one yet, but I wouldn't be surprised. Very easily. Yeah. And so, what they're looking at now, the way that this is, that the police state is building, the way that, talk about bringing back stop and frisk, something that's proven not to work. Every statistical way unit of measurement showed that stop and frisk didn't work. They're talking about bringing that back. It's going to be a lot of chaos. It's going to be a lot of separation. It's going to be a lot of issues and struggles amongst the American people. So I'm saying, for when it speaks to us as a people, because we've got our struggles, we need to rebuild. Our education system is lacking, is failing us. The judicial criminal justice system has us with a designated role.
But no one, we have a designated role. But when you look at the role that we play, no one has helped us.
Well, this is what I'm saying. So with all these things that are going on in place, is this the part where Black Americans just say, you know what, we've fallen on the sword for y'all far too long? This country, black slaves not only built Americans' economy, rebuilt the economy for Europe. Yep. The cotton trade back then was that money. Heavy. That money was what built America and also rebuilt Europe. People forget about that. Nah. Always a history lesson on say something. When all those the colonists, the pilgrims, when everybody was out, the explorers who were leaving Europe to go across, they weren't looking for spices for the seasoning up their food. Mm-mm. Europe was bankrupt. It was disease-ridden. It was the plague. Crime was running rampant. It was crippled and falling by the wayside. They sent out their people, like Europe was the pimp, and sent the little junior pimps out to find new corners to work. Yeah. And when they found in North America, they was like, this corner's a payday. And all the money that they were making here, they were sending back to Europe to rebuild. Jolly old England, the Queen's riches, all that stuff was built off of African black slave labor here. Oh. United States was able to build itself up high enough to the hoe that became her own pimp. No, taxation without representation. You ain't gonna pimp me no more. I'm gonna be my own pimp. That money for America's independence was based off of African slave labor. We gave the economy that built this country up. All these other immigrants who weren't a part of either, who came from South America, who came from Asia, who had nothing to do with that time period, came over with hopes of a good life. They dreamed America, the streets were paved with gold, a land of opportunity. Yes, the opportunities that were allotted to you based upon the backs, the laboring, the oppression, and the struggle of Black Americans here. Is this the time where we just say, you know what? This is where we gracefully bow out.
I say, I mean,
we done our part.
Like I say, we've been resisting. I'm telling black folk, like, pay attention. We don't need to march too much. We don't need to protest too much. We need to build.
Well, is this okay? I agree with you.
We need to build.
I agree with you. Now, do we? Because, like I said,
even if he signs a stop and frisk, we need to build, because I don't see. No one has come help us like the way we've helped them.
Which is why I'm saying, is this the point to where black people remove ourselves from people of color? Remove ourselves from minorities.
Well, you know what?
You know what I mean?
Here's the things. Here's a killer words that have killed us. Minority.
Yes.
Diversity.
Yes.
Multiculturalism.
Yeah.
People of color.
Yeah.
All these words have destroyed us.
Exactly.
Because it never speaks upon to the issue. What Donald Trump has done is exactly what we Black Americans were hoping that he was going to do for us. Lay down some ground rules. I can't knock the crazy white rich guy Donald Trump. He told you what he was going to do. Yeah. I mean, and for most part, he's pretty much been right on. Yeah. So, in other words, I'm like, wow, well, his whole Trump card, no pun intended, could be the fact that he maybe treats the blacks a lot better than any other president.
Well, this is what I'm saying. So,
did you hear his inauguration speech?
I heard part of it. I didn't.
I heard that he wasn't speaking too negatively.
Well, I think more so with him, and what he's been consistent about is look, addressing Chicago, the crime area in Chicago. If his plan is, you know what, huge mass incarceration, we're gonna come through and lock up all the troublemakers by by sheer virtue of removing a percentage of people, because the unemployment rate in Chicago and that South Side is roughly 50%.
That's crazy.
The opportunities are minimal. The education system is abysmal. But if you removed 17% of the population, those resources would to a degree free up. So you say, look, I'm going to lock up all these people. And I'm going to save whoever's still there.
And it's not like it hasn't happened yet.
You know what I'm saying?
You know?
So my thing is, if it came to us, I just is just my viewpoint. Maybe it's our time to pull out. Like when it's a cultural issue, y'all handle that. When it's a people of color issue, y'all handle that. When it's a diversity issue, y'all handle it. When it's a black issue, call us.
There you go.
Because when it was multicultural, Latinos didn't show up. When it was people of color, Middle Easterners didn't show up. When it was minorities, Asians didn't show up.
No, excuse me. They did show up when it benefited them.
No. I'm talking about when it was a call for when somebody got to fall on the sword. When somebody got to get the German Shepherd sicked on them. When somebody going to jail tonight. Mm-hmm. Like, so is this the point where we just say, look, we only answer the bat phone when you ask it for somebody by name.
It needs to be now. It needs to be now. Ahead, front. What are we black folk getting out of this? It needs to be said.
What's in it for us?
It needs to be stated. It needs to be, written in big, bold black lettering. What is in this for us? What do we get? What is the agenda for black folk? Because at the end of the day, all this kumbaya, we are the world shit, it doesn't work for us. It never has, it never will. And that's the reason why we've always got shafted. Because we have this sense, I think the world has this sense that you could keep the Negro down, kick the Negro down, punch the Negro, he'll be all right because we're resilient. And I think for a fault that we've showed this resilience as our badge of honor, like, you know what, we've gone through harder times, we'll get through this again. I'm tired of that shit. I'm tired of people telling me our heaven is in the sky. I want my heaven right now. You know what I'm saying?
Something very good you just said. Something that about black Americans is that contrary to what you see on TV, the negative narrative that we're all thugs, criminals, this, that, that. The biggest thing that we do incorrectly is to each other. But we have welcomed everyone. Other group.
Everybody.
Every group.
Everybody. Asians can go into a full-on black community and open up shop.
And be all right.
Can we do that to Chinatown?
No. But this is the difference. If all of a sudden that people will tell you, oh man, I was messed with or I was picked on, I was teased. Yeah. If you embrace the culture, if you go into any area, there's the Asians that's running with the homies. There's the white dudes running with the homies. There's Latinos that's running with the, like, we don't segregate or turn our back on other groups. We're segregated and separate apart because other groups turn their backs on us. So like I said,
real conversations, bro.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's like, okay, we need to do this, we need to come together, who's we? Oh, we speak, what's that? Oh, you speak French now.
Exactly. I'm the moment that I'm happy for is this, because I've predicted a lot of what is happening right now. I'm not going to say that I'm Nostradamus or nothing like that, but I saw the writing on the wall. Yeah. Because, I mean, it's easy to see. Yeah, right?
This train is never late.
I mean, but at the same time, when you feel the pulse, and when you out there and you see, and again, I'm not saying that other cultures, other minorities, as we want to be fit in this box, were out there. But when it was coming down to the get down, when it was time to really allow that privilege that you have to be kind of like, all right, I'm going to put that to the side and I'm going to go in this with you. Yeah. People knew, well, I'm white. I don't really have to go ahead and fight the night. I'll go right back to being white.
I'm going to bring something, because you just brought something very important, because I think this is something we do as a people all the time. And I just think that this is, you're going to say something about specifically. And that's black folks and Native Americans. And I think that this is something that's very important, because if you have African descent here, more likely than not, you got Native American blood in your veins, depending upon when your family got here. And because they talk about like that Standing Rock stuff. And it talks about who we align ourselves with. And stuff that's important to remember historically is that when we talk about every group that shined us at some point, Native Americans were there too. Because back historically, when
I've seen those pictures.
When African slaves would run, and they used the slave catchers, aka the police department, Native Americans were the bounty hunters. And so Native Americans were paid to retrieve black slaves or slaughter and scalp them for running off the plantation. Also, since we talk about who's been there for us since the beginning, on those reservations, a lot of Africans ended up there. This is how a lot of us have Native American blood. You had, black dudes hooked up with Pocahontas, and then we got babies in the bloodline. But what happened is that when the United States government wanted to come through and give the version of reparations to the Native Americans, part of the policy that was instilled in that is that it had to be separate of Africans. There's always been a policy in the United States government that was to remove black people from a beneficial position. So when a lot of Native Americans were granted their reservations or granted their sovereignty and then their money, it had to be separate of Africans. So they actually kicked off Africans and half Africans and quarter Africans off those reservations in order to make sure that they could get their check.
That's real game.
So if the fact is that if it's like, if for me to prosper, for us to be okay, is at the expense of you, I'm willing to do that because self-preservation for my people becomes before my compassion for you. That was what Native Americans did centuries ago, up until now, damn near. Yeah. And so, because black people will always be first to say, I got Native American blood, but how many Native Americans do you hear say they got a second cousin that's black?
Blood in me.
Yeah. How many you quick to say? How many you black people be real quick to say I'm part Cherokee? But how many Cherokees say they got a black cousin in Detroit? None. So I'm saying when it comes to recognizing, our position in this country, is it time to sit down?
Oh, most definitely. I don't think that black people need to get too involved in some of this tomfoolery. Our resistance has always been what it's been. Our stance has always been that. But, you're going to have the bourgeois Negroes trying to figure out their ways. I think that now is a time that blacks need to strategically plan, build. If these other cultures want to connect with us, want to vibe with us, want to build with us, I feel like what I thought was funny was we had an African marketplace right after that big women's march.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't see anybody rushing to spend with black folk. We just had the MLK Day, and you had everybody out there. It was probably more people out there this past year than the previous years because of all that stuff, all this unity walk. I didn't see them come to the African marketplace to spend their money. Like, I don't need you marching. I don't need you protesting. I need you to help me build up my community, help me build up my economics, help me gain some of that leverage that you got. Help me fight for my reparations. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, and this is not basically saying that I'm not closely on Trump's side, but I'm just saying before we come to the table, we're gonna have to get some few things in order with our counterparts, our individuals, our brothers that I said have watched us being raped, have watched us suffocate, have watched us be beaten, have watched us become animals in this cage, thirsting for water that we are not being given, have watched us being publicly lynched like we're just dogs. I need to have these real serious conversations on what are you guys willing to do for us before we move forward.
So before on that 1 through 5, so before we take our meeting to have that conversation with number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 need to sit down and have a few words about moving forward.
Well, black people are so, I think, ridiculous because once like white supremacy or somebody gives us a little token of a we're sorry. And I'll just use this spin on the Oscars, right?
Yeah.
How Jada jumped out, Oscars, so white Oscars.
Now there's what they do more Oscar nominations in the history of the Oscars. Now and also nominations. That don't necessarily translate to a win.
But
statistically, but I know what you're saying.
But you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
And granted, definitely Oscar worthy. But like that's just how they get us, and now we're back to celebrating. Now everyone's going back to the Oscars
again. Oh, everyone's gonna be there this year. All the diversity this year. You gonna pan the crowd?
Wait. Excuse me. You said that deadly word.
Oh no.
You said that deadly word.
Oh no. I'm not for us. I'm saying like for them.
Hey, listen. You said that deadly word.
Oh no, I know.
Diversity.
But that for what using it in the same context is exactly what it's gonna look like.
I don't want to hear about that. I don't want to hear that word no more. Like, I get sick to my stomach with hearing about diversity. Diversity means nothing because it's never diversity. It's never that. It's more of them, less of us.
Well, no, it's the opposite. It's all diversity. Because the fact of the matter is that if you have a short person, a tall person, a blonde, a brunette, this, that, whatever, you would pan out a room full of, you could get 50 Asians in the room and they're all Asian. And you said that's a diverse group. Why? Because there's men, there's women, there's old, there's young, there's children. There's some who are married, there's some who are not. There are some who are employed, some who are not. That's a diverse group of people depending upon the criteria in which you use. That's why the word diversity means actually, that's why it truly does mean nothing. Because unless you've got a bunch of clones all in the same room, any room is a diverse room. Like those,
and that's why the word
that's the hustle.
Is so dangerous.
That's the hustle.
And that's why it becomes such a hustle. Like those words have hustled us, have broken us down. I've heard it all day today at this press conference. Like I said, it sounds good, but until people start looking at facts. Donald Trump was created by who? White media. When white media saw ratings with Donald, they let his mouth go. They could have easily put a fork in it and got him out of here, and we might have had Bernie, we might have had Hillary, right? Yeah. The fact that we had Hillary, she would have been no better, but she had been humbled from the beating Obama gave her, and I guarantee you she would have done less. And talking about Hillary, since she lost, what has she done for the black community? Where has she been?
Nothing. But here's something else to take it a step further on the hustle. And this is something we're going to preface it. It is January 26, 2017. We're going to mark this day as a little benchmark to see what happens. One of the working theories is and such is that Trump was what the Republican Party needed to be, quote unquote, sexy again. Controversial, to be on the tip of people's tongues. Republican Party was vanilla in a world that wanted 31 flavors. Like they just wasn't messing with it. So you get Trump in as your elect. Pence is the guy they wanted. You get him as vice president. How do you get your vice president to become president? When you've got a brash, reckless, inconsistent, incompetent president. So here's the deal. Trump catch a bullet. Now just follow. They say follow the money, follow the magic beans, follow the breadcrumbs. Trump catch a bullet. You get Pence as your president. You bring in Romney for the second run, which is the other dude they wanted. Now you've got the two dudes in place that you wanted, as well as an ability to maintain the House and the Senate, because now all this foolery that's going on in his first 100 days, his first year, you need those parties in place to start working policy and to play cleanup. This could be an extremely crazy jump off to the Republican Party and some real BS that goes on for the American people.
I don't think Trump's going to last 4 years. If he does, I'll be shocked. And if he does, it's going to be so much chaos into that. And going into Mitt Romney, you know, this is when you have to really look at things and see how, like, they've played this and why when, you know, don't blame the black folks who didn't vote. It's not our fault. You know what I'm talking about? Because clearly
you got to blame the ones that did.
Exactly. Clearly the popular vote went to Hillary, right? And you see what happened. The electoral votes was what mattered. Yeah. And we don't have any control over that. We know what does, all right? Yeah. So again, hence why I've said Obama was selected, not elected, all right? Yeah. Okay. Remember the thing that really took Mitt Romney's presidential campaign to a spin when that video, that audio leaked out about the 1%, the 99%, and that gave him horrible press.
Yeah.
Hence, in 2012, that destroyed Romney. Turn around in 2016, comments of that nature that Trump throws elevated him. Mm-hmm. What an oxymoron that is. You know what? Let's think about that. That should let people know the process of how much of a game that we're entangled in. How is it that Romney said something not even as direct as Trump, and Trump is elevated, Romney is shut down, doesn't win the presidency?
But there's something that goes along with this, and the big part is because based upon Mitt Romney's comments, it applied to white people. That's the difference. Mitt Romney's talking about the lower income, it applied to white people. Donald Trump, Donnie T, has been very good about breaking apart each individual group. I'm not talking about Mexicans. I'm talking about the Mexicans over there. I'm not talking about black people. I'm talking about those black people over there. I'm not talking about white folks. I'm talking about those white people. So when Trump says something, there's a subgroup to every group he's addressing. So no one group thought he was specifically talking to me. So that's how he could get a pass that Romney couldn't, because Romney didn't have the track record of the brash statements. So then it just seemed like a pompous classist move. Mm-hmm. To anybody who's below this tax bracket, this applies. And white people don't like to be grouped in with every other group of people.
They don't. But at the same point in time, I think that's kind of funny. And I think that there's going to be so much more of this chaos. I'm telling black people, stay home, start building. I'm telling my other folks, you know what? We appreciate you being on the front line. I'm telling the white people, white on white crime is a deadly disease. I'm so sad to see it. But if we are, as a country, really going to be exactly what this country illustrates or plays out to be, like, there's going to have to be some serious healing. There's going to have to be some real serious conversations. And at the end of the day, you know what? People are going to have to start really taking the needs of what black people ask for more seriously. And if you don't want to talk about race, we're going to continue to have more situations just like this. But I do think that this could be the end of white supremacy as we know it. I just don't see that with 4 years, unless something totally goes berserk, them having another run like this on all levels. Because I think this may be the time that, yes, all colors outside of being white will join together. But before we join as blacks, we need to join with a purpose, a reason, an agenda, an ideology that was very focused and centered, and bring it to our peoples and say, this is how it's going to go.
Because these are the type of conversations that we need to have, not only within our community, but with the other adjacent and adjoining communities around us. That as much as we need to build within ourselves and build up our families and our communities, a lot of these other groups are going to have to realize that even if you weren't an active participant, your sideline watching contributed to the situations that a lot of other groups ended up in.
Silence is consent.
Yes, and that the fact that you weren't the bully, but you stood by when the bullying was happening.
Man.
You may not have been the oppressor, but you stood by when the oppression happened.
Man.
You may not have robbed the bank, but you picked up the money that was dropped when they ran out the building.
Man.
You contributed and benefited to the pain and misfortunes of another group, even though you may not have been directly involved. Therefore, some part of you may have to come to the table with a certain degree of not only an apology, but some restitution.
Most definitely restitution.
And so these are the things that we need to discuss as a community, discuss as a people, stuff that we need to not sit silent about, and some things that we need to say something about.
Say something.
I'm Jermaine Morris, always bringing you real life without the sweeteners, here with the one and only Mr. Berry Accius.
Yes, sir. Good seeing you, brother, and it was a good time.
Where can folks find you online?
Berry Accius, Facebook, Berry Accius, Twitter, at Team Void, Instagram. I've been getting some great responses on some of the posts that I've had on Facebook and YouTube as well. I've, trolls. Shouts out to all my trolls and haters.
On Facebook, it's Jermaine Morris. Every other Instagram, Snapchat, Periscope, all this stuff is all at J Morris CEO. Got an event this weekend, 2 days from now.
Yes.
It's January 28th in Sacramento, California. It's the second annual Manhood Mentoring Conference held at the Fruit Ridge Community Collaborative here in Sacramento, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. The focus is healing, conflict resolution, moving on from adversity. A lot of great, powerful speakers for young men 12 and up in the greater Sacramento area. If you're here, come out. If you're far from here, holler at somebody and we'll get you here. Where can they register their young men at?
onevoiceofyouth@gmail.com. The number one voiceofyouth@gmail.com. I think we'll probably do some Facebook Live as well on that joint.
Okay, and so we'll keep you posted.
And then also I'm going to be in Indiana in March, and Oakland in February, and I'm also going to be in LA in May. I got some things happening, brother.
We'll have to talk about that on the next podcast.
Yes, sir. Let's do it. Let's make it
All right, I'm Jermaine Morris here with one on Mr. Berry Accius, and until next show,
say something.
and we'll holler at you later.